Welcome to the Well-Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Thank you for tuning in to the Well-Off Podcast. I'm your host, George Masri, and today I interviewed Mathew Frederick, who is a longtime investor. He's been investing since, I believe it was the 80s that he said. So he's been in it for multiple years, and he has looked at so many different strategies. He's actually originally from Trinidad, and he came here and bought his first property when he was 19 years old. And through his brother's help, his brother pushed him. They ended up buying a bunch of properties together. Since then, they've gotten into multifamily storage solutions, self-storage solutions. He's also building in Belize. He's got properties in the States. So he's looked at so many different things. And we just touched on some of his systems. We talked about the benefits of owning self-storage, the cash flow that he generates from them. We talked about owning strip malls and commercial and how that's kind of different from residential. So if you guys are interested in maybe just expanding your knowledge on certain topics, certain things that you might not hear too much about on podcasts, I think this is a great one for you. And if you enjoy it, make sure to share this with somebody who's going to benefit, a friend or a family member. And also make sure to leave us a review on the Apple Podcast platform. That would be greatly appreciated. And then finally, if you want to find out about some of the opportunities that I have in the Niagara region, we've got some multi-units. We're looking at 3 to 6 unit buildings, and we have a couple of opportunities. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. WellOffX is what you can look up, and I will be happy to connect with you. Enjoy the episode. I am here with Mathew Frederick today. Mathew, I appreciate you coming out. I like to start off by asking you a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up. So if you want to just tell us a bit about your history.
Well, I was born in the Caribbean. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, a little small island. I came here when I was 7. Interesting enough, the fact that I was an immigrant, when I came to Canada back in the 70s, back in 1972, my parents told me, you have to work twice as hard to get as far. I didn't have a choice. I had to actually make something of myself. And therefore, when I was 19 years old, I bought my first property. And I bought it 80% cash, and my parents put 20% of their 20% mortgage, which is the reverse of what you normally see.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Trinidad, when did you come to Canada?
So back in 1972. So that makes me 57 now. And so I've been investing. My first house at 19 now, that's 37 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I got seriously involved in real estate when I was about 24, 25 years old. I was a teacher.
Okay. So you started off as a teacher. That was your first career?
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I was 18, 19, I was in the military part-time in the reserves. So I was a soldier, and I was going to school. When I graduated school, I actually got a job at the Bank of Montreal, which was a great start, their main computer center. The problem with that is I was working 40% of my time programming somebody else's program, and 60% of my time doing things that I didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. But it would have been a great career. I just didn't want it. It wasn't me. And I left, which is a hard choice to make, because once you get out of school and you get picked up by a very large company, you don't walk away. Mm-hmm. And I did. And I went to IBM. I liked it because I was able to literally go out and do half my day out of the office, half my day in the office, which I really enjoyed. Yeah. And then I became a teacher, and my brother was a police officer. And he came to me and he says, would you invest with me? I'm like, no, I already bought my first house. I don't need to buy again. I'm a teacher. And he says, well, I'm your older brother. I have a gun. You're a systems guy. You're going to invest with me. And therefore, I had no choice. Yeah. So I became an investor after that.
Okay, awesome. So you said you started taking it seriously at around 24, 25. Was that when your brother kind of pushed you into it, or did that come after?
No, exactly. So a lot of people got into real estate investing because maybe they always knew about it, always had the bug for it. I didn't. I just bought my first house just to have a house. And in my first house, I lived in the upper section. The kitchen was shared with the lower unit. Now, back in those days, we call that, live in one unit, rent the other unit, share a kitchen. Today, they call that house hacking. Yeah. But so I bought that property, but I was never going to buy a property again. But my brother, being a police officer, seeing properties all day long, and he was more visionary. I'm more of a systems guy. Yeah. He wanted me to put together the system to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it kind of forced me into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did that go from there? Did you just buy one property with your brother, or did you guys invest in multiple properties together?
Well, my first property was at 19. So by the time I was 25 years old, I already had some equity in my property. And because I had that equity, it was making me some money. I was able to borrow against it, and I was able to buy 2 properties. And because he had a really great salary, I had a great salary as well. We were able to buy 2 properties together, and then we bought a third, and these were multifamily properties. So there were triplexes and fourplexes, which I think served us well. We started in Hamilton, Ontario, downtown, old Victorian homes. And we had those for a few years, but then we maxed out. We hit the ceiling. We couldn't go anymore. And therefore, we had to do some things more creative to get some financing.
Yeah. And I remember hearing a little bit about your story in the past. I know you've dabbled with a lot of different strategies. I think you had also at one point got into self-storage.
Self-storage.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about some of the other strategies you've gone with.
So a lot of people say pick one strategy and just be great at that. And I do agree with it. The thing is, I've been around for a long time. So when you've invested for 30-something years, you realize that certain strategies only work in certain seasons. Let me give an example. For the last 10 years, people have been doing BRRRR, buy, renovate, refinance, rent it out, take the money out and do it again. But for most of my life, investing, all the way through the 80s and 90s and obviously early 2000s, interest rates have been 5 or 6%. Properties appreciated 5% a year. And appraisers were very sticky when it comes to giving any grandiose appraisals. So BRRRR didn't work that well the way it does today. So in different times, you do different strategies. Now, I liked self-storage of all the different types of investing because I don't have to worry about fridges or stoves or washers or dryers or kids. I love them. Or pets, love them too. But as a landlord, I don't love them that much. Yeah. All I'm doing is I'm buying land with a self-storage on it, and people, they pay rent from $250 to $650 for this empty space, which I don't even have to heat. And therefore, I got into the original type of self-storage that you see out there, the ugly kind of garages. But it's ugly, but it's a moneymaker.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Which area did you start investing in self-storage?
So I started north of Toronto. So I would say a few areas between Barrie all the way up to Minden.
Oh, okay.
So not like right in the city.
Yeah.
Today self-storage looks different. You get 3 stories. You have over 600 units. That's a whole different concept, which I like as well. Because now land is more expensive, so therefore you have to go vertical in order to afford that land.
Yeah.
But of all the real estate I've ever had, I think self-storage has been the most profitable and the easiest to run. They're not so easy to get, and they stay in the family for a long time.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about how you find self-storage options or opportunities, and also how do you buy them? Like, what does it look like to own self-storage?
Well, self-storage is not financed the same way a house would be financed. It's more commercial property, industrial even. And I tend to get 50% financing. You can probably do better, 65%. But in most cases, I get 50% financing. It's very hard to expand them because cities don't really like them. They don't like the original self-storage because you have all that land, an acre or two, and really you have 1 or 2 employees, not really paying a lot of taxes because you're not really developing it.
Yeah.
So cities are not crazy about that look. But of course, the new ones, the cities, I think they're okay with. But ultimately, how I got my first self-storage, I stumbled across it. I used to head up to my cottage. I'd stop by an old-timer all the time, get him a coffee, because the Tim Hortons was about half hour away from where this guy was. And I'd stop by, give him a coffee, we'd chat just about anything, because I wanted to learn about the area. And after about 6 years, he said to me, you know what, I have prostate cancer, I'm dying, and I want to sell you my self-storage. I'm like, well, I don't do self-storage. It's not really attractive. He goes, listen, my wife isn't beautiful, but she's a good woman. She goes, self-storage. He goes, that's the way to go. So I'm like, okay. And I bought it, and after I bought it, and he passed away, a great gentleman.
Yeah.
But out of kindness is how I got that deal. And it's been super profitable for me. But normally what you do is you look for a piece of land and you check the zoning to see if it can be zoned for self-storage.
Yeah.
Very hard to convert to that zoning. And if you see a small self-storage unit, if it has some land next to it, you may want to buy that and expand it.
Yeah.
But financing is about 50%. And but financially, it makes a lot of money.
So when you get into self-storage, is that more of an appreciation play or a cash flow play?
For me, that was a cash flow play.
Okay.
Because the land has gone up in value tremendously, but that was never the main goal of it. Land has doubled only because, land has doubled and tripled only because there's less of it. But it's really a heavy-duty cash flow play with very little property management and responsibility.
Yeah.
Today I have 24 to 34 unit buildings. So I have people who actually manage those for me. When I get a phone call, it's usually the world is coming apart.
Yeah.
Now, with my brother and I, once we started buying houses, we started with about 3 houses, like I said, and then we got to about 16 houses. Having 16 houses and managing yourself, you think you're rich. You look rich on paper. You come home after a hard day's work, and you get a phone call. Something is wrong, and you have to go and fix that.
Yeah.
So I found having 16 houses was like having 16 children.
Yeah.
And yes, I looked good on paper, but it was driving me crazy. So therefore, I wanted to go to the larger units where I can get an on-site manager.
Okay. So yeah, we'll touch on the multi-unit in a second, but I wanted to ask a little bit more about self-storage because I've never had anyone actually talk about it. Okay, so what does it look like to own self-storage? You said there isn't too much management and whatnot. What kind of issues do you come across? If you do get that call, what is it that somebody's telling you about? What issues?
So really, so my main expenses are really just my security cameras, my internet, and I'll have somebody there on Mondays, maybe Wednesdays, and maybe Saturdays. The rest of the time, it's just 24-hour access. So that's where your expenses. Your expenses, your electrical for your lighting systems, and things like that. The problems I get is when somebody backs up into the door.
Oh, okay.
I know it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
And yes, I have insurance, but the fact is people backing into the door creates a problem. And sometimes a greater problem is when they miss the door and they hit the little small column in between the 2 doors.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, you have to have good security fences, and you have to be careful of who you allow to store things in your storage.
Right.
For instance, if people are storing Harley Davidsons or parts for Honda Civics, people love to steal those things. Gives them an incentive to cut through your fence and try to break in and steal things.
Yeah.
So those are some of your problems. What I don't see is what I see on television when somebody leaves a unit. You know how you have the auctions?
Yeah.
People come to the auctions.
Yeah.
When people leave units, they leave me junk.
Yeah.
So it costs me around $300 to $500 to get rid of their stuff.
Yeah.
I've never found a Kubota or something amazing like I see on television.
What about like if someone's storing drugs or something like that? Do you ever come across a situation? How do you mitigate against that?
Yeah, so what we have is we tell our people that we work with the OPP. No, we don't. But we just tell them we work with the OPP with their dog training system. Yeah. And we have them come on in every 3 months and just have a look at each of the units. So we tell them that. But we also have a policy that states that, they can't do that. And also, too, there's things that you can't store. Like everybody wants to store their tires there. Got to be careful, because tires are flammable. So we have to be careful that people are not storing flammable things. Yeah. We can do or have checks on them, and we do have security cameras, so we can see what people store. But again, if it's drugs and things like that, you really don't know. Yeah. Same as if you had a house where you're renting it to somebody. You really don't know what they're storing. Yeah. But we have our rules that if you break these rules, you'll lose your deposit. Yeah. And if the deposit is big enough, large enough, people tend to have an issue. One thing people don't understand is with self-storage, people say, if I'm 100% rented, that's great, I'm making maximum dollars. But you never want to be 100%. See, with real estate, you want all your apartments rented, all your stores rented. But with self-storage, you want about probably 94% rented, because you always want to leave some room for somebody who wants to move from a small unit to a larger unit. If there's no space to go to a larger unit, they'll go somewhere else. They'll never come back. And if someone's driving by and they want to come on in, if you're fully rented all the time, you become irrelevant. Yeah. So I want to be at 92% capacity, and I make most of my money there and give leeway for people. Yeah. What about increasing the rates? Are you able to do that at your discretion, or do you have to follow certain rules, kind of like rent rules? Well, that's the good news. We can increase the rates to whatever we want because it's pretty much commercial real estate. And as commercial real estate, you have a contract. And whatever your contract is, whether it's a 3-month or 6-month or 1 year, you can do whatever you want with that. The same as if I had a strip plaza, which I do, and I have tenants in my strip plaza, I can pass everything on to them and increase the rents to whatever I want. So there's no landlord board that determines that.
Right.
The market determines that if you're too expensive for what you're offering. Now, obviously, if you can get heated and you can get second or third levels, that'll be great. But the higher up you go, the less you can charge. And by the way, you have to have an elevator to go up there. There's a cost to that as well, maintenance.
For sure.
You know.
What about, how do you maintain the 92 to 94% occupancy rate? How do you make sure that you don't reach that 100%?
Well, we also have a waiting list. So on most of our self-storage, let's say, facilities, we have a waiting list of about maybe 45 people waiting to get on. So we deliberately say that we just don't have room. And we have to do that because, again, we have to be considerate of our existing customers. We have to be able to allow them to grow up or grow down.
Yeah.
So generally, we have a waiting list. I think most people have a waiting list.
Yeah. Okay. And I would assume you're generating a pretty substantial cash flow to continue to do this, because if you're making $200-300 a month, it's probably not worth it, right? Not worth the time.
No, it's a heavy duty cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because keep in mind that my expenses are my property taxes, my insurance, just some lawn and snow, mostly snow removal, de-icing, and electrical just for lights and simple things, right? Security. There's not a whole lot of maintenance. And, you know, I do say people will hit the wall every now and then, but that's not a lot of people. If you put the proper bumpers in place, sometimes it offends the tenants. You know, they're like, why do you have these big bumpers? Yeah. Well, for you.
Cool. Okay, so you would say that your self-storage strategy is better than multi in your opinion? You like it more? I know it's personal preference. I'm just asking your preference.
Yeah. So there's more cash flow, triple the cash flow actually. Now, for me, looking at my portfolio, my self-storage makes 3 times the cash flow, and it's 3 times easier to run and maintain. My next level is my strip plazas. But my strip plazas have 6 to 8 stores, so they're small. They're not the large malls or anything. 6 to 8 stores. But you have to make sure you have what I call an RIP system. Recession-proof businesses, internet-proof businesses, and now pandemic-proof businesses. So restaurants are not pandemic-proof businesses. Yeah. And a lot of strip plazas will have a restaurant anchoring it. I tend to want to stay away from that. Now, internet is, if I need to get my hair cut, I can't send my hair to China and get it cut and have it sent back to me. I'm going to get my hair cut there. Yeah. So the internet won't worry that, although the pandemic did. And then recession-proof businesses like variety stores and pizzas and law offices, as long as it has the right mix, that's really great. Then my next love is the 6 units strip plaza with 6 apartments above it. Now I have best of both worlds.
Yeah. So now you're talking about mixed-use buildings.
Mixed-use buildings.
Yeah.
Then I go to multifamily. Now, multifamily 6 units, I don't like to buy. 2 reasons. Those are the entry level for people who they have a bunch of houses. They're like, you know what, I have some houses. Why don't I combine them? Why don't I buy something in one spot? So now I have a 6-unit multifamily. The problem is because they cut their teeth on those, it's like your firstborn. You learn to be a parent. When they want to sell those things, anybody who sells a 6-unit tends to want maybe 50% more than what it's actually worth because they work so hard to learn the process. And I'm not crazy about paying 50% more than the value just because somebody learned and had a hard time on it. Secondly, it's still 6 units and not enough money for you to get a property manager. So you're still managing it.
Yeah.
And then third, it's the entry level, so you have a lot of competition. I like the 12 to 24 unit because it's a sweet spot. Too big for the small guy, too small for the big guy. And it's big enough to have a property manager take care of all your problems and maybe even a site supervisor. So it's a great scenario, but you have to bring in JV partners in most cases for something like that because it's more money.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of curious because again, like you're one of the first people that talks about strip malls and commercial and whatnot. So what is it? I know you kind of touched on the RIP system and pizza places. Do you ever have any medical any medical practices in your commercial stuff?
So medical retail, I call it, and yes, that's great.
Yeah.
So those work very well. What I like about the retail component is it's pretty much 2 types of rent. I'm getting my net rent. Well, you have net and you have gross. Gross means obviously they pay one price. I don't like that. I like net, where they pay price per square foot as a rent, and then they pay price per TMI for taxes, for maintenance and insurance. And what that means is, if anything goes wrong, like if I have to, my taxes go up, whatever they are, whatever my insurance, whatever my maintenance, the roof falls in, anything that goes wrong with that building, I can attribute that back to the tenant.
Yeah.
You can't do that when it comes to multifamily. At the same time, I can set my rates. I can say I want this much money, and every year I'm going to increase it by this much. And if the person does not pay within 15 days, now COVID was different, but normally in 15 days you can put a lock on that door.
Yeah.
That's the person's business. And lastly, I can provide them with just a shell, and they'll go and spend $100,000 to $200,000 putting in all the leasehold improvements to improve that. And when they leave all those improvements.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to rent than to deal with multifamily.
Yeah. Do you ever, because I remember one time I was talking to someone and they had commercial units and they said they had so much turnover in one of the units. They had like 10 different layers of flooring, that kind of thing. Have you ever had anything like that happen?
Yeah, I've seen that before, but you have to have obviously control of exactly what the person is doing to the property. So when someone comes in and they say they want to renovate a space, I have approval on exactly who they use, what they use, and how they do it, because it's still my place. So yes, it's possible that if you lack control, don't have a system, you're always going to lose, right?
Yeah. So what happens if the person can't pay? Like, do you take personal guarantees from the person that's renting the commercial space from you?
So the person can't pay. I mean, in 15 days, we can lock them out, and within 60 days, we can sell all their contents. But obviously, it's a business in someone's life. So I could look at my lease, and I can say, are these good tenants? And what is the situation?
Yeah.
Is this going to be a 3-month or 6-month tough time? And if it is, maybe I can adjust their rent down right now and then increase it in the future. So I might adjust their contract. Maybe they're paying, let's say, $10 per square foot for the next 3 years. Well, $10, then $10.50, and then $11.
Yeah.
I might say, tell you what, maybe you could do $8.50, $8.50, $8.50, and then $14, $14, $14, or something like that. I can adjust it with them.
Yeah.
And then make it work for them. But they have to show me that they're coming to the table and they're doing their best.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's people that might be trying a new business. They might be starting something and it may not go as planned. So in that situation, if they're just not generating income enough to pay off the lease and whatnot, what would you do in that case?
Well, 2 things. Number one, I have to say to myself, maybe these people are not good in business, and maybe they shouldn't be in that business.
Yeah.
And maybe failing, letting that person's business die is probably the best thing I'm doing for them. I used to watch American Idol, and Simon Cowell was so cruel to people, but some people can't sing. And they spend so much time trying to do something they shouldn't be doing. So sometimes I may just have to have them honor the contract, because that's a lesson.
Yeah.
Whenever things go wrong for me, I don't get a break from the bank. I literally have to fulfill my commitments.
Yeah.
So sometimes I may hold them to the standard that they promised, and I may have to close them down, and that's what I may do. But if it's possible that it's a situation that I think that these people can benefit from their business, then I could work a few things out with them.
Yeah.
I could reduce rents. I can also, sometimes I might spend some time with them. I might commit 1 hour a week with business lessons. I've had 7 restaurants. I've had a manufacturing company. I've had 3 wellness clinics. So because I'm a businessman, sometimes it's just sitting down with them and showing them how to run the business.
Yeah.
Because they know their stuff. They may not know how to run the business.
Right.
And I'll show them that sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about this whole thing because I've never really explored commercial as an option, but it's good to know. And it sounds like you have a lot more control on the commercial side, which I already knew. Aside from commercial, so you touched on multi. Is there anything else that you've done that you've enjoyed, that you've had success with?
Well, in Belize right now, Belize, Central America, I am building 3-story houses out of concrete and rebar. So I'm enjoying building these properties in Belize, which is something that I like. I've done a lot of studying on modular builds. So modular is not mobile. Mobile is a mobile home. I'm talking about building a property with modular components that are built in a factory, even up to a point of a 3 or 4-story building. I haven't done it yet, but I have as a developer. I've built 113 house subdivisions. I've built 35 house subdivisions. I focus on semis. I like a semi better than a single house. I dig one big basement, I have one big roof, I have one common wall, and I'm selling 2 houses. Mm-hmm. So I like the semi. Yeah. At the same time, I build 3 to 4 story, 50-unit condo buildings, let's say from 30 to 50 units, and I build with wood. So that I like doing. I haven't done that in the last few years. COVID's been interesting for me. But I would probably get back into building, but doing something called modular building, because it's done a lot faster.
Are you talking about doing that here or in Belize?
No, here.
Oh, okay.
Here, in Canada, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in Belize, it's a great place to build. At the same time, their building regulations are a whole lot different from here. Mm-hmm. There are literally no regulations. Yeah. We literally have to set, well, I shouldn't say that, but we literally have to set the standard down there in how to do things. Mm-hmm. And although there are regulations, they're not monitored the same way they are here.
What made you want to start building in Belize?
Well, about back in 2007, I took 6 months off. I talked to about 4 or 5 friends. I says, you know what? Every single one of you, give me $3,000 each. They say, what for? I go, I'm going to go spend 6 months traveling Central America. Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Costa Rica even, Belize, southern Mexico. I'm going to spend 6 months, and I'm going to spend about 3 to 4 weeks in every area, immerse myself, wake up, talk to the old-timer at the local, coffee shop, and understand the culture of the place. And I said, after 6 months, I'm going to let you know where you should be investing. And, well, Belize stood up. So I never even knew what Belize was. Mm-hmm. But I liked it because it was pretty much the same parliamentary system as we have here. We have a Westminster bicameral system here in Canada. They have that there, too. Same law system, same common law system for property. There's so many things I liked about it. I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to start investing there. And for these friends that paid me this money to go on vacation, because they couldn't, and I could. And we ended up getting a 27-unit subdivision down there that we actually ended up building. And that's really why I chose Belize. Mm-hmm. It was there, and I liked it. It stood up. Yeah. And so it wasn't, I knew Belize was a place to go. And I like the fact that it was English speaking, that all documentation is in English. Mm-hmm. Today I'm trying to learn Spanish. Yeah. But in most places it's Spanish, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. So what's your plan with these places that you're building in Belize? Are you going to hold on to them? Are you going to rent them out, sell them?
Well, right now, what we're doing is we're building these 3-story properties. Each story, it's about 1,000 square foot per story. And each story, we're going to rent the main floor to what we call expatriates, people who have retired there from Australia, from England, from Canada, or the U.S. They're going to be there full time for 2 years. Yep. Now, you won't make as much money. If it was Airbnb, you'd make more money on that main floor. But we want somebody there consistently all the time. And then the second and third floor, we might Airbnb it. The third floor, we may use it for our friends and family also. Mm-hmm. We're going to build a few of those. Already have 2 of them on the go. And now we have a contract to build 3 executive homes for some guys from Texas and from Arizona.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you already own a lot of real estate. You have cash flow coming in from your different projects and whatnot. Why do you continue to do this? Why don't you just take a break, relax, go to the beach, enjoy life, and not worry about working or building or doing anything?
Well, the good news is that's what I do. So I stopped really working full time at age 50. I'm 57 now, and this interview today is pretty much the first thing I've done. First day I've actually put a suit on since January 1st. Yeah. So you've brought me out of my retirement. Yeah. But ultimately, I'm a person that when I'm ready to go, when I'm like 95 or 98, I don't want to sit there and think, man, I'm going to die. I want to say, I'm ready to die. Mm-hmm. Please, I am done. This caterpillar needs to be a butterfly. Yeah. I'm not a person for sitting around on the beach. I'm from the Caribbean. I already have color. Yeah. I don't need to get a tan. Yeah. So I find that, I remember I was in Jamaica. I spent 2 weeks there, ended up creating a little bus company. So after a week on the beach, I'm bored out of my mind. I ended up hiring a guy I rented him the whole day as a taxi. And after I said to him, why don't you have a bus company, a little mini bus company? Mm-hmm. And he goes, I don't have the money. And I says, well, let's talk about it. So for me, it's like doing stuff. That's the heat for me. That's the juice. Mm-hmm. So I really can't sit around doing nothing. And I like developing myself and traveling as well. So I like the best of both worlds.
All right. So I've heard that before. You're not the first person to say that you can't just sit around and do nothing. I understand, because obviously you have a work gene that got you to where you are today. You wouldn't have all these properties and everything if you wanted to lay back all your life. So it seems like a very common thing, and it's good. If once you reach a certain point, you have the cash flow coming in, your life changes, and you don't have to work anymore, but you do it because you can. And I'm sure, is there anything that still stresses you out these days, or are you just relaxed and enjoying life and just doing what you love to do?
Well, in all real estate, the problem is a people problem, whether it's a tenant, even though I have property managers, whether it's the property manager themselves, whether it's the contractor. Even when I'm on a job site, I'm a grown man, and I work with grown men and women, but I have to deal with the HVAC guy who thinks he's God, talking to the electrician who thinks they're God, talking to the plumber who thinks they're God. Now, once I'm dealing with these three people, then I have to deal with all the trades below them who literally blame these three guys for all their problems. Mm-hmm. So life imitates high school. So even though my real estate is great and I have a great system, every now and then I get phone calls, and it's not really dealing with some of the tougher problems, it's dealing with the humanity problems. Mm-hmm. Like I have some business partners who invest with me, and once they get into actually invest in themselves, it might be a couple who might buy a property and they want to invest in that property, and they might do something together. And for instance, you might have a male and a female, and sometimes the male does more of the physical work, and sometimes the female does a lot more of the logistics. Mm-hmm. The problem here is male, and it could be either way, but guy goes to the job site, he spends a whole day, he can see what he just accomplished. I just finished the room. But his wife is doing 15 things that take 10 different parts to do. So he comes home and says, man, I had a great day. What did you do? And what did you complete? And she says, well, I didn't complete anything. And he's like, oh my God. Can't you get anything done? So she's feeling as though, wait a second, I can't get anything done. I feel not accomplished. He's seeing accomplishments every day, and he doesn't understand what I'm going through. So what I'm saying is I'm always dealing with relationships mm-hmm. and personalities. Yep. He's got to understand that she's got 10 things that take 10 parts each.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So from the dealing with the job site people, my general contractor, where it's a site supervisor, and then the trades who try to go through the site supervisor over them to go to general contractor and then create issues, real estate is still a people problem.
Mm-hmm. 100%, yeah. You mentioned a couple times systems. You mentioned in the beginning and throughout. Can you tell us a bit about your systems? Maybe when it comes to multi-unit investing, because I think most of the listeners are probably interested in that.
Okay, sure. Now, systems come in two different forms. A system of how to do something and a system of things that you have, let's say, being done. Mm-hmm. So if I were to buy a multifamily building, my main concern is not the building. My main concern is where am I going to get the money to fund this thing? Yeah. If it's a $2 or $3 million project or building or a $5 million building, where am I going to get that money? So if I don't understand the wealthy mindset, I might tell somebody, hey, this has got great cash flow, it's got great appreciation, great neighborhood, I have good experience, you're going to make money here. Well, that's not talking to somebody who has money. Someone who has money, I have to have a system where I show them how I'm going to protect them liability-wise. Mm-hmm. You invest in my project, I'm going to protect you liability-wise so you don't get sued. I'll tell you something. Because I make more money today, lawsuits scare me more than no cash flow. Because when you have money, you're on the 10th floor, people come after you. So I need to show my investor how I'm going to protect them from liability. Secondly, I'm going to have to show them how they actually make money with the tax system. In other words, what is my tax system? My liability protection system? My tax system. Because if you make a lot of money but you lose all the taxes, you haven't made any money at all. Mm-hmm. Then I have to show them my system of how I literally give them the ability to jump out. In other words, they can leave at this point, leave at this point, leave at that point. It's like an airplane. People, they get to hear the folks tell them emergency exits, but those things are only good on the runway. Those things are not good at 50,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So people need exits all the way along the way. At the same time, I have to show them all the other systems I have in place in case I'm not there. So once I put those systems in place, then I can say, I've earned the right to say to them, okay, and now I'll show you that you can make cash flow and appreciation, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So systems are important to be able to show somebody that what you have is going to protect them in a number of ways. I've only given you 3 of, let's say, 12 things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you have a property, you know itself, it has systems, just like a car, right? A car's got a brake system, steering system, it's got a gasoline system. So your building has a heating system, cooling system, electrical system, plumbing system, and then you have to create a protocol to manage each of those systems and not wait until they break. What do I do to preempt the breaking of it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where the systems come in place. And then the people to come in and deal with those things. So I've had to sit there and plan out what can go wrong with the heating system in this building and plan out every single step of the way. Who am I going to call? When are they going to be called?
Mm-hmm.
What it's going to cost me? At the same time, what should I do not to get that problem?
Yeah.
And once that system is in place, then I look at something else, the roof system.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to break everything down, like a car, like the human body.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Everything you're doing with the system, which is really a great way to scale, because if you're trying to figure everything out on the fly, it's not as consistent and easy to do. So that's pretty cool. I guess the next thing I want to ask you about is, what has you excited over the next few months? What are you looking forward to?
One thing I'll mention is that I do have that military experience because I was in the reserves from the time I was 17 to the time I was 27. The Army Reserves is all about systems, right? My excitement is I'm actually looking at the U.S. right now. Although I've bought in Arizona back in 2007 when everybody was running away from the U.S., I went down there, I bought 3 properties in Scottsdale, and I rent them out as executive rentals to corporations, which means I provide the chef, I provide the fitness worker, I provide the masseuse, legal masseuse, I provide the lawn, I provide the driver, all local businesses packaged to corporations so that their executives, when they fly in, don't have to go to hotels. They can stay at these properties. And back in 2000, I bought properties in Cape Coral, Florida, and those were great properties. But I hadn't looked at the U.S. since then. But today, because prices are so expensive, even something as simple as Hamilton, Ontario, a dinky house can go for $900,000. All of a sudden, if you go to the Fort Erie area of Buffalo, you can, at 22 hours drive, you can buy a property for $250,000 Canadian. You're still paying, of course, 30 cents more on the dollar, but it doesn't matter anymore. And on top of it all, even if you were to do a withholding tax of 30% or even file tax returns and pay 15%, you can buy 4 houses and make 4 times the money now in the U.S. than you can in a simple town like Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So I've been looking at that market just out of curiosity. I've been investigating it in my last few months of retirement.
Yeah.
And I might look into that a little bit more in details. But I do love Canada. This is a great place to invest. I always invest here. But because the prices are high now, it doesn't really matter if I have to drive an hour and a half. Nowadays, you're driving 3 hours to get a low price here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So.
Cool. Yeah, that's all interesting stuff. You've explored a lot of different markets and whatnot, and it's cool to see that you're always looking for opportunities. To finish things off, how do people reach you, and what services, if anything, are you providing these days?
Okay, I will say this, though, that although my story sounds amazing, I've had a lot of drawbacks. I've made mistakes. I've lost money. I've done a lot of bonehead, stupid things. So everything looks good on the surface, but it's hard to be successful at real estate investing. And there's a lot of people issues you have to deal with. For me, to reach me, you can always get me at my website. It's 6 letters, rccsol.com. You can always reach me at my email. My first name is Mathew with 1 T, so mathew.f@rccsol.com. Contact me. I do coach people, more one-on-one. I don't spend a lot of time coaching the masses, but if someone's serious and they're interested in getting into self-storage or multifamily or upgrading their system, I will pick people on a per-person basis. Because once you get to a certain stage in life, you really only want to work with people who are motivated and people who want to get something done. Mm-hmm. I don't need to, be like a babysitter to people.
Yeah.
So it hurts my head. Mm-hmm. So literally, I will work with people because I was a teacher. I still like teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for coming by all the way from Ancaster today. I don't know if you're staying in your condo in Vaughan, but it's great to have you here, and thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, it's really great to be here. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.